What's going on, guys? It's Danny from Fantasy Stock Exchange here, and today I'll be riding solo talking about my favorite rookies in all of 2021 fantasy football, going over 4 players in depth and some honorable mentions at the end, providing rationales to why they are in store for huge rookie years. For this video, we'll be focusing on players that are going under the radar via Underdog Fantasy ADP, giving you the best bang for your buck in rookies primed for extreme opportunity in 2021. Again, we'll be focusing on the more underrated guys. We'll have multiple videos discussing the top rookies entering 21, don't worry. But for the focus of this video, I kind of wanted to give notice to those rookies that are currently being selected outside of the first 7 rounds of ADP, avoiding the top names such as the Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts, Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith. You get it. But as we've seen, hitting on these late rookies with opportunity would have given so many people in recent years a competitive edge. And just looking at 2020, we saw the likes of CeeDee Lamb, who was going off the board at the end of the 9th round half PPR ADP in August 2020. Justin Jefferson off the board at 1203. Brandon Ayuk, 1311. Chase Claypool, 1411. You get the drift. That's just to name a few. There are some special talents going at this range of the draft that are getting discounted because of their rookie status. As we'll be referencing Underdog Fantasy ADP throughout the video, make sure to sign up on their platform using code FSC to get free access to both of our draft guides, as well as a $25 deposit bonus on your $10 deposit when you sign up. So getting a bang for your buck, $35 worth on the app for a $10 deposit, as well as both draft guides going at a $30 value for free. So make sure you go and utilize that to the best of your abilities. But if you guys enjoy content like this and are interested in more, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and turn notifications on to never miss a beat on an FSC upload. We are on the road to 5,000 subscribers, and your guys' support means everything to us. That being said, let's hit the intro. Okay, so let's start this off by saying the main premise of this video will be outlining some high upside rookie wide receivers, and validly so considering the extensive history of production from the position since 2018. You guys can see it on the screen, but Corey actually tweeted this out in mid-June. From a redraft perspective, we've really seen some rookie wide receivers take the reins and perform early on in their careers. Just to name a few guys who have finished as wide receiver 3s or better in points per game in their rookie years, you got the likes of Calvin Ridley, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk, just to name a few. So you guys can see that extensive list. There are a few rookies in this class in particular that I have every belief in being able to eclipse wide receiver 3 or better numbers. So let's start it off with Rashod Bateman, a.k.a. Lamar Jackson's #1 new toy in that Baltimore Ravens passing offense. So Rashod Bateman's current ADP on the Underdog platform is wide receiver 55, 112th overall. And in terms of multi-site ADP, which would basically be your home leagues, wide receiver 59, 154th overall. So clear discount, not even a top 50 wide receiver via ADP. But let's take it away as to why this guy is going criminally underrated at his current price point. We've talked about in depth over the offseason, but the Ravens have shown these past couple offseasons that they have made a commitment to approaching a balanced approach in their play calling in 2021. And it's been evident over these past couple off seasons when you take away the overall sum of their moves. You got Rashod Bateman, first round pick this year. Hollywood Brown, who was a first round pick a couple years ago. Sammy Watkins, Tylan Wallace, also to complement Mark Andrews. They have an abundance of pass-catching talent that they have brought in to really give and stabilize Lamar Jackson in growing as a passer. And we've seen multiple reports already this offseason that offensive coordinator Greg Roman really wants to approach it with a more downfield passing attack in 2021. And was scrutinized last year. I mean, you guys know he was running a stale, predictive offense. We kind of knew they were a power running team, a lot of handoffs, a lot of read options. Well, guess what? He really wanted to extend what he could do with this team. And while they were using a lot of shotgun in 2020, the Athletics' Jeff Zebrak actually expects Lamar Jackson to take more under the center play action type of deals with this team, which will eventually allow him to stretch the field as mentioned. So That only bodes well for a guy in Rashod Bateman who has the athletic profile, who has the route running, who has the ability to really work at all three levels of the field, in addition to the others in this offense being Marquise Brown and Mark Andrews. We're talking about a team that passed the ball at a ridiculously low rate last year. This was a team that passed the ball at a 45% clip, by far the lowest in the NFL in neutral game scripts. And every indication we've seen has pointed to the fact that they want to balance out what they want to do on offense and bring things to the table that people haven't really seen from them before, as you guys can see on the screen. When you're talking about Rashod Bateman as to how he figures into that increase in passing volume, in terms of prospect profile, man, this is a guy who's, I think personally, walking into this team as the most talented wide receiver on the roster from day one. And given his style of play, his acumen, his versatility, his route running, his nuance, I think can be the alpha of the group right as he enters this team. And you guys can see the report again from Jeff Zebek from The Athletic. He expects rookie Rashod Bateman to be a significant contributor from day one. High praise for a guy that was picked in the late first round that was expected to go much earlier than he actually did. So I'm not calling I'm not calling Rashod Bateman the next Justin Jefferson, but when you're comparing the situations, they're eerily similar. We got talented wide receivers with elite route running skills that landed in supposed run-heavy offenses that will limit their upside. Bateman has really all the talent in the world to be able to enter that elite list that I mentioned earlier. And at current wide receiver 55 cost, you'd be a fool not to take that shot. The fact that he's currently not even the most expensive wide receiver on his own team, to me, is astonishing. I mean, I think Marquise Brown is a fine player. You want to get him in best ball because he'll have some boom plays, by all means. But there is no shot that I'm ever taking Marquise Brown over Rashod Bateman, given the profiles, given the stature, given the usage. This is a guy, Rashod Bateman, that could end up entering Michael Thomas type of territory, being that he was kind of underutilized going into the year and ends up winding up being a big slot contributor, outside contributor. He has all those aspects to his game to be able to enter day one as a polished NFL wide receiver. So the fact that you're getting him in the late 10th round just absolutely makes no sense. So make sure you go scoop up Rashod Bateman. Absolute steal at current cost. But we can move on to the next name on the list, and that is going to be my darling, my guy, my chosen one, Elijah Moore, currently going off the board one spot ahead of Rashod Bateman, according to Underdog ADP. Wide receiver 54, 110th overall. And in terms of multi-site ADP, being your regular redraft leagues, wide receiver 63, 184th overall. So when you're talking about Elijah Moore, let's get it off the bat. I'm not just hopping on this train right now. I've been on the Elijah Moore hype train since day one. This is my wide receiver 4 pre-draft, and Elijah Moore was selected as the 34th overall selection to pair him with the Jets' second overall pick in Zach Wilson. And let's just quickly talk about how good and how efficient he was at Ole Miss in 2020. Talking about the guy who was number 5 in the class with 3.85 yards per route run. Number 1 in the class in drop percentage, only ahead of Devonta Smith in terms of receivers that had 50-plus targets. Number 2 graded wide receiver, according to PFF, in this draft class in the 2020 collegiate season. And top 5 in this class in avoided tackles, top 8 in avoided tackle percentage. This is a guy that on only 19 deep targets had 490 yards and 4 touchdowns. This is just ridiculous production from a guy who has shown all over those statistics to be able to do it at any facet that he chooses and pleases. So the main qualm that people might have with Elijah Moore, because let's be honest, there's no qualms you can have with this guy's talent. This guy is a freak of nature. The only qualm that you can have is, oh, well, Moore's running with the second team as training camp opens. I'm sure many of you guys on Twitter have already seen, oh, he's with the second team. How is he going to get the opportunity? Like, if he's with the second team, he can't produce fantasy points. Don't fret. Head coaches typically give their talented rookies an opportunity to prove themselves, to give those veterans they're replacing a sense of respect. But make no mistake about it, when week 1, week 2, week 3 comes, Moore will find himself into that starting lineup sooner rather than later. And for those of you who don't believe me, the Vikings did this exact same thing with rookie wide receiver Justin Jefferson leading up into last season. And we all know how that turned out. So you guys can see those reports on the screen. But they are basically the same reports that we're getting for Elijah Moore this year. Impressing coaches, working with the twos, no time before he enters himself into the starting lineup. These are guys that are ready to commit day one. And similar to Justin Jefferson, Elijah Moore has completely shown out, has been the best player in Jets OTAs. Yet we want to believe one report that he's running with the twos and it's going to be substantial going into the season. Like, absolutely not. This is preliminary training camp reports. Don't buy that shit. Elijah Moore will be on the fucking field ready to produce in fantasy football. The vibes that we're getting from Elijah Moore has been similar to recent league winners we've seen. I mean, we mentioned Justin Jefferson, but even similar to those of DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, oddly enough, his former teammates at Ole Miss. And for those of you who want to know what AJ Brown had to say about Elijah Moore, for the record, AJ Brown, arguably a top 5 to 10 wide receiver in the league. Again, read this quote with hyperbole. Don't believe it at face value, because let's be honest, obviously he doesn't think that Elijah is actually better than him. But according to AJ Brown himself, said, I knew there was something different about you, brother. I never told you this, but you're way better than me, bro. The sky's the limit for you. You can go as far as you want to go. You're blessed. Again, I don't think this is actually him saying, yo, you're a better player than me right now. But this goes to show that Elijah Moore has all the respect in the world from the people that he's played with and has already made an immediate impact entering the league, as you guys can see from Corey Davis. Corey Davis himself, the new signing, a near $13 million man per year, said on Elijah Moore, he doesn't seem like a rookie. He's out there leading the guys. I can't wait to see what he does for us. And Ethan Greenberg also tweeted out that he's really comfortable out there and acts like he's been there before, a baller on and off the field. Corey Davis has the same kind of praise for Elijah Moore being his teammate for 2 months that AJ Brown had for him playing for him with 1 year. All that shows me is that Elijah Moore is not only ready-made to produce, but also a character, a leader on and off the field, which only bodes well for his opportunity to earn significant snaps with his coaching staff right away. So if you're still buying that second team report, don't, because Elijah Moore is ready to break fantasy football. And again, I have trouble not taking him in any single draft I'm in right now. You guys will see my current exposure on Underdog Fantasy, but when I tell you guys to draft these guys, I'm not just putting out some fugazi saying, oh yeah, take these guys, and I'm not doing it. Nah, I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and my money is on these two guys that I just mentioned to be able to set themselves apart this year and ultimately win leagues down the stretch. So anyways, you guys have already heard us talk about Bateman and Moore ad nauseum this offseason. Let's get into a guy that's kind of been under the wraps that we haven't talked about as much, and that's going to be Terrace Marshall, wide receiver from the Carolina Panthers. Currently going off the board as the wide receiver 68, 147th overall via Underdog Fantasy ADP, and he's also the wide receiver 81, 255th overall on multi-site ADP. So right off the bat, this is how I view Terrace Marshall. He's entering a system that he is very familiar with. You're talking about Joe Brady, his offense coordinator in 2019 at LSU. Terrace Marshall was on that team and produced like a freaking madman, as basically everyone on that team did. But before we get into that, let's talk about the opportunity available to this guy, a second-round pick, 59th overall, that was only available there because of injury. Curtis Samuel vacates 115 targets. And he was last year's wide receiver 28 on half PPR points per game. Yet we're currently taking Terrace Marshall, 40 wide receivers after that. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're talking about Terrace Marshall. You're kind of confused. Oh, yeah, well, what does he do well? What's his game? Well, his game is he's a completely versatile player that can do it as the big slot and can do it out wide. We saw in 2020 when he played his 7 games this year, he spent 82.1% of his snaps in the slot. And under Joe Brady in 2019, spent 35.2% of his snaps in the slot. So this is a guy that will be used all across the formation, but can make his hay as a reliable slot option, as we saw with Joe Brady, and evidenced by the fact that this guy caught 81.8% of his contested targets at LSU last year. This is just a reliable player that can get open and can go up and get the football. So when you're talking about the profile, the size, the system familiarity, the production, there's absolutely no reason to not take a flyer shot on Marshall at this current wide receiver 68 cost of acquisition. And if you're wondering, okay, well, you mentioned that he's probably a pretty solid player all around. Okay, cool. What does that do? How does that get me fantasy points? Well, the fact is, this is also one of the most dynamic touchdown scorers we've seen in college football these past 2 years. He had 23 receiving touchdowns in 19 games played at college at LSU in these last 2 years. And the only reason, again, as I mentioned earlier, that he was available at that 59th overall pick was lingering injury history. But again, he was considered a fringe top 5 wide receiver prospect, top 25 pick prior to those reports coming out. as you guys can see on the screen, reported by Dan Pompey of The Athletic. And according to Bill Voth, he's finally ready to attack training camp after being held out of contact during spring. And it looks like the injury is behind him. It looks like he's ready to ball out. It looks like he's ready to resume his play at training camp. Now, we usually tend to stay away from players with preseason injuries. And again, if anything lingers up, if anything pulls up for Terrace Marshall, okay, I can absolutely adjust this take. But at current cost of acquisition, at current knowledge of what we know of this injury and of current knowledge of what we know about Marshall overcoming it, Marshall presents upside similar to what we saw from T. Higgins last year, in my opinion, in terms of ascending offenses with new college or quarterbacks and creative play callers. The familiarity that we have with Terrace Marshall, with Joe Brady in this system, only bodes well for Marshall adjusting to the NFL. And again, if you were to tell me, due to this scoring prowess in college, that in his rookie season, this is a double-digit touchdown score on an ascending passing offense, I would not be shocked. And again, we're talking about dart throws. We're talking about guys going basically so far outside the first 10 rounds. If you're not shooting for upside at that point, you're playing fantasy football wrong. You can always pick up the Sterling Shepards, the freaking, what other boring players are there? Freaking Anthony Millers, guys like that off the waiver wire. You cannot get any of these guys I just mentioned, those 3 wide receivers, off the waiver wire once they're balling the fuck out in the season, which I think all 3 will be doing. So overall, if you're going to take anything away from this, bet on young ascending wide receiver talents, because let's be honest, the 3 I mentioned are absolute studs in their own right. But talked about the wide receivers in the video. We talked about the 3 guys that I absolutely love at cost. Now let's talk about the running back I love at cost, which oddly enough, talking about loving a running back at cost, you don't usually hear that. But Michael Carter going at RB31, 94th overall via Underdog Fantasy ADP is an absolute bargain, considering the fact that he has all the talent and all the potential in the world to eclipse a role as this team's main bell cow back, or workhorse back, if you want to call it that, in a Kyle Shanahan system. And we'll get through all those factors, but let's just talk about the talent himself right off the bat. Carter, his talent. According to PFF, he had a 135.1 elusiveness rating, which ranked 4th in the class. Avoided a tackle on 30.22% of his runs, 6th in the class, and had an 18.47% home run rate, if you will, which basically means 18.47% of his total runs went for 15 or more yards, which paced the entire 2021 draft class. So we know this guy's profile. Outside zone runner, inside zone runner, he can do it all. Wide zone scheme that we have implemented by Mike LaFleur going into the Jet system. He is a perfect fit. Talk about fitting like a glove, as I mentioned all offseason, into this system. In addition to his prowess as a receiver being 1.93 yards per route run and 11.4 yards after catch per reception. So Michael Carter has all the talent in the world to be able to eclipse this role as the Shanahan system main back. Well, let's talk about what type of role do we expect? What type of role can he garner on this team? First, vacated opportunity. This team in New York vacates a staggering, from the departure of Josh Adams, Le'Veon Bell, and Frank Gore, a staggering 209 rushing attempts and 32 targets from last year, as well as 34 red zone rushing attempts from what was one of the worst offenses in the league in 2020. The role is clearly there. You're talking about legitimately 241 opportunities to be hoarded up by Michael Carter and Tevin Coleman, who I'll get into later is not the Tevin Coleman that you think he is. All bodes well for this guy to end up earning that role. So talking about the offensive line additions, this is a team that made it a focus in the offseason. We need to bolster our offensive line. And guess what? They did so this offseason. The addition of first-round pick Elijah Vera Tucker, whom they traded both of their thirds to move up and get, was the consensus top interior lineman in this 2021 NFL draft. So the fact that you're able to get him at the 14th overall selection already signifies to me that they're committed to improving this line for the foreseeable future with this young offense, as well as the fact that you signed Morgan Moses, who was a top 20 graded tackle in the league, was a huge get. In addition to the fact that Mekhi Becton is one of the up-and-coming stars at left tackle for this team, their first-round selection in 2020. So I think this is an offensive line that should figure to be at least average, if not above average, even as early as 2021, which only bodes well for not only Carter, but this young offense as a whole. So talking about Carter and talking about, well, you mentioned all that vacant opportunity. Why would Michael Carter figure in that role? Well, let me tell you this right now. The Athletics' Connor Hughes believed it wouldn't be long before Michael Carter ended up as the Jets' lead 1A back. And guess what? It wasn't long whatsoever, because we saw first training camp practice, this guy was earning all of the first team offensive snaps, which is crucial to really seeing that despite being a fourth round pick, the Jets were true to the word that he was the best player on their board. And if they had a third round pick, he was going to be their guy. Guess what? Fourth round pick already starting for this team. We have seen the lead back in a Shanahan system, as I mentioned before, thrive in fantasy football over these last 4 years. In 2020, prior to dealing with the injury problems that ended up plaguing the rest of his campaign, Raheem Mostert, get this, averaged 15.7 half PPR points per game on only 15.75 opportunities per game. If you were to take that 15.7 and extrapolate it over a season, that would land as the RB9 in points per game and tied with Jonathan Taylor himself. In 2019, Mostert's 14.81 points per game once he took over in Week 11 would rank him as the RB10 in points per game that season on 13 opportunities per game. Get this, RB9, RB10 on 15.7 and 13 opportunities per game. This is a system that, while it may not have the most abundant of volume available for the lead back, guess what? If you're an efficient lead back that can get out and hit the home run, like Michael Carter validly can, you're going to be an efficient runner that can produce from a fantasy football landscape on this team. And that is exactly what I feel like Michael Carter can represent for this Jets team. Now let's talk about Tevin Coleman, because that's going to be the main thing. Well, Tevin Coleman played with this 49ers coaching staff. Tevin Coleman is familiar. Tevin Coleman. Tevin Coleman really struggled when on the field in 2020, as you guys see on the screen. And for a 28-year-old running back coming off an injury-riddled season and one of sharp decline, I just don't have a hard time investing in Carter at all. Like, the main back that we're supposedly putting against Carter is one that put up numbers like this: 1.9 true yards per carry, 2.7 yards per touch, 10 total evaded tackles. You guys see the rest of the stats, negative 10 expected points added. Tevin Coleman is not even remotely that player that we saw between 2015 and 2018. So let's get that over our head, because Tevin Coleman has been injured, Tevin Coleman has been washed, and Tevin Coleman has been sharp in decline in recent years. So I don't even remotely value Tevin Coleman at this point. Heck, if I'm going to shoot for a back in the Jets backfield, if I don't get Carter, I'll take Ty Johnson over Tevin Coleman at face value, in all honesty, because at least Ty Johnson has shown to be an efficient player over these last 2 years. And if Tevin Coleman and Ty Johnson are the only thing standing in the way of Michael Carter earning significant first-team reps, I'm taking Michael Carter any chance I can get him. So if you guys need any more evidence or validation on why I'm so high on these four players being extreme values, I mentioned my skin in the game. I mentioned my money where my mouth is. You guys can see on the screen, skin in the game will indicate that I will take these guys any chance I get. Michael Carter is my fourth highest owned running back on Underdog Fantasy ADP. And the receivers I mentioned just so happen to take up 3 of the top 4 spots. So I am all in. I have over $100 invested in each of these guys. Yes, give me the value on all of them. But let's talk about some honorable mention and guys that maybe you might not take in your season long because your drafts are too shallow to really get them. Or one guy in particular, that's going to be Nico Collins. You're probably not going to take him in your season long league. Let's be honest here. He's probably not going to be a top 15 round pick. But at wide receiver 88, 195 overall value according to Underdog. I mentioned in this video, we're talking about elite rookie wide receiver value. Collins is an elite athlete with clear opportunity for targets in Houston. And you guys can see this list of reports that Collins has really shown that he should have an opportunity to earn significant snaps right away. And David Coley, head coach himself, called Nico Collins their prototype wide receiver and a very tough kid. So if he can get any type of shot, and you're currently getting him in like the 17th, 18th round, absolutely no reason not to snag him there. And finally, the other honorable mention I will say from this group would be the rookie quarterbacks. I mean, you guys have heard us ad nauseum talk about these guys, but when you're talking about Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson, currently off the board, 14th, 15th, 16th, and 24th, respectively, at the quarterback position. You look for elite players with great arms and mobility, and all of these 4 quarterbacks present each of those in abundance. So you want to talk about an honorable mention? Just take up all these rookie quarterbacks you can at value. And heck, in season-long leagues, you might be able to get them even cheaper because there's going to be narratives driving their price down. So anyways, I went on a little bit of a tangent, but I absolutely believe in each of these guys. Recapping the video, talking about Rashod Bateman, Elijah Moore, Terrace Marshall, Michael Carter, and said honorable mentions. And as always, if you made it this far in the video, comment down below your favorite rookie that you're targeting at current value. I want to hear all your guys' thoughts. I want to hear all your guys' comments in that comment section down below. Make sure you leave those below. And as always, appreciate y'all. We'll see you later this week. Dynasty decisions, strength of schedule videos, all of that good stuff. That is why you're subscribed to your channel. That's why you made it this far in the video. Peace out, y'all.